member of the Friends, this is the best bargain in town. For $10, you can become a member and you'll get our annual newsletter, which is chock full of information. So I want to welcome you all, and this is our annual meeting where we have our short business meeting, and now the gentleman in the dollar bill necktie, David Weinstein, will tell us what our treasurer's report is and how we are doing financially.
Absolutely. So the treasurer's report is over significantly. So all in all, our revenue is up about $8,000 this year. So it was a really good year. Good year financially. We're also spending money. We have committed to spending $26,000 towards library programs, materials, professional development for staff. So that we're spending money as well, which is good news. We like spending money. We have a net right now. We are about $1,000 in the black this year right now. Our fiscal year will end on June 30th. So we'll see where we are at the end of the year. We have in the bank, we have $100,000, $101,000 right now. But we have, what has not been committed is about $88,000 has not been committed at this point. That's where we are financially. We'll be filing our annual tax return in July. We also have to file reports with the Division of Public Charities and the Attorney General's office. That'll be happening in July as well, so our tax exempt status is retained. So all that stuff is up to date currently and will continue to be up to date. Questions at all about our finances?
I want to say it's always interesting we have monthly meetings of the Friends, the fourth Monday of the month, and we come to the meetings and the table is spread with $1 bills. And David is there putting them all together, getting his deposit slips ready. And it's always interesting that any number of the board members volunteer to help him count.
We're truly in the bad. We're probably doing business like they did in the 1960s. No credit cards, no nothing online. It's all cash.
Okay, and I want to take a few moments to recognize some of our board members who have been of great service to the Friends and who have now retired. And the first one I want to talk about is Helen Gates, who was our secretary for many, many years. And Helen has stepped down from the board. We as board members always loved Helen's minutes. They were always concise, and it was like reading a story. It wasn't like reading minutes. And so Helen will be missed, and the board, in honor of Helen, has voted to set up a fund at the library, and we're contributing $1,500 to set up a book fund for Helen. And Helen has chosen that the books she would like to support are fiction, because that's what she likes reading the best. So we're doing that for Helen, and we will miss her greatly. Let's see, the other person who has left us is Erin Williams, who was a reference librarian here. Some of you may know Erin, that she started off as a assistant circulation clerk at Coolidge Corner, and then she went to library school, and then she became a librarian at Coolidge Corner, and then she moved here to be a reference librarian. But Erin has moved on. She has accepted a job at the Mass Board of Library Commissioners, where her role is she works with Friends groups and trustees groups all over the state. She's still here a couple of hours a week, serving as a reference librarian part-time, but she's no longer our staff liaison. Then we also have lost 3 other board members, Rusty Browder, who had been on and off of the board any number of times, and Rusty is moving on to new ventures, and so she has left us. And then Mark and Pippa Lelienthal, who were with us just for about a year or two, and it was a husband and wife team on the board, which we'd never had before, and it worked out for them that one month Pippa would come and the next month Mark would come, and then the other would take care of their child care at home. But they've moved to France, and they are attempting to do a book on French country foods. And so Mark has this wonderful blog that I get every now and then from him about their adventures in France with their 2 young children, age I think 4 and maybe 2. So it's very exciting for them. Let's see. The other thing we would like to do this evening is to recognize, he is not here, is our leaving director, Chuck Flaherty, who has worked for the Friends the whole time he's been here. Chuck has not always convinced us that we should spend our money on some of his projects, but most of our times together have been very cooperative, and it has been a great joy to work with Chuck, and we will miss him. The board has voted to send $5,000, which will be donated to the Chuck Flaherty Innovation Fund that's been established here at the library. So Chuck will be with us even when he isn't with us. Okay. Oh, we also have to, not only did we say goodbye, but we said hellos. We have a new board member in Claudine, sitting back there, Claudine Kavanaugh, and she's our newest board member. And we welcome any of you who are interested in serving on this board. It is an extremely congenial group. We meet once a month, either on usually the fourth Monday, but sometimes the third Monday if there's a holiday. And we don't meet in the summer, and we don't meet in December either. I mean, this is a really, but it's a great group of people, and we have a good time together. And finally, we have to go through elections to the board. We have 4 officers that we're electing this evening. The first nomination is for Nancy Niddickman for president. Nancy is not here right now. This evening, she's in Raleigh-Durham. Tomorrow, she will be in Charleston, seeing 2 operas and 1 play. She's on this kind of fantasy tour, car tour, visiting theaters and opera houses around the country. So she's not here, but she's here in spirit. And Nancy is an unbelievable worker. Has done a great job as president of the Friends, and she is up for re-election. We'll probably vote on them all together. And the second, we have a new role, and that is vice president, and Claudine Kavanaugh is going to take over. It's wonderful to have somebody who's under 60 years old on our board, and she's full of life and is connected with the schools and school kids. And Claudia's been involved in science projects at Coolidge Corner Library and will continue to expand that role. The third person is David Weinstein, who this organization does not know how to function without David as treasurer. He's been treasurer for 105 years, even though he looks younger than that, but we love David. And the fourth office is Claire Goodwin, who is going to be our new secretary. And Claire's been a board member for about 2 or 3 years now, and she has worked on any number of projects with us and has taken on the onerous role of secretary. Nobody likes to be secretary. But those are our 4 nominees for office, and we would appreciate a vote of support, or unless there's another nominee from the audience. Well, I say no nominees, so nominations are closed, and I would ask for a vote on those 4 officers. All those in favor of our 4 officers signify by saying yes or raising your hand.
You're going to be a member?
We don't care. You're a member?
Oh, yes, I'm a member.
I was going to say. All those opposed? Abstentions? Well, wonderful. We have our officers for another year. Congratulations. And finally, I want to recognize our new staff liaison. Brian, and I'm going to say it wrong, but I'm going to try, Hodgson.
That's it.
Hey, I did it right. Brian has stepped right in to fill Aaron's shoes, and he's doing a great job. He's made a lot of great competitions and contributions, and the thing I'm most excited about is he has taken on the library website, which I inherited from Jonathan and Melanie, and I'm very happy that there's somebody there who's helping out with that. And most importantly, his contribution was he saved us from licking 700 plus envelopes when we were doing our annual mailing, and that he knew that in the library there was an envelope sealing equipment. So it saved us from doing it because we were not looking for it. Okay, well that's where we are at the present, and I guess we could end our business meeting. And ask people to help themselves to cookies or water or fruit, and we will wait for our speaker to arrive. And as I've threatened, if our speaker doesn't arrive, maybe I'll speak to you about TV. But in the interim, help yourself. Yeah. Meeting adjourned. Oh, thank you, Claire. Meeting adjourned. The office. He has written celebrity and author interviews, served as managing editor of the Boston Review, and created a number of and clerked at a number of local bookstores. He has had other jobs and assignments too, but he can no longer remember them because TV has destroyed his brain. Matt's most recent project, Off the Leash, a year at the dog park. I have it on good authority that the park of choice in Matt is at Amory Park. I look forward to hearing about his television criticism, but I especially want to know why The Wire was not listed as among his shrines. And his so with that poke, I give you Matt Gilbert.
Well, now I'm a little afraid. I think it's hysterical that the library has asked the TV critic to speak.
We have lots of TV shows here. I mean, we have lots of DVDs.
I'm not complaining.
And there you are, on TV right here.
Well, I wrote a speech, but I'll read some of it, and I am most excited about the question and answer period afterwards. So just bear with me while I blah, 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 and then please, I invite you and ask you to bring your questions forward. I was thinking about TV and books, and I thought, since TV was invented, it has been perceived by many as the sworn enemy of books. You were spending your hours watching The Brady Bunch, Bewitched, and, I admit it, Melrose Place. Then you were turning your brain to scrambled eggs with the side of a mysterious sausage. Much better, the thinking went, to read a book and use your intellect and your imagination. Think of the nicknames for TV, most of which are scathing and were probably invented by book lovers. The Idiot Box, the Boob Tube, and my new favorite, which I discovered while I was doing some research for this, Tell-Lie-Vision. Films, on the other hand, are informally and affectionately known as movies, flicks, and motion pictures. And you all know this already, times have changed radically. Right now there's just an enormous amount of really good TV being made. The canon of familiar greats includes The Sopranos, Breaking Bad, Friday Night Lights, 6 Feet Under, and The Wire, of course. And the greatness continues with the epic political allegory that is Game of Thrones, the marital and espionage mysteries of the Americans, the uncompromising portrait of addiction in Nurse Jackie, and the rich melodrama and character study that make Mad Men a classic. It's a cliche at this point, but I'm going to say it anyway. Series TV is better than the movies, which are desperate to bring teenage boys into the theaters, excepting, of course, our own Coolidge Corner Theater, which aims for adults. The medium of TV allows writers and actors the time they need to flesh out their characters in detail, to show their characters transformative arcs across weeks and years. Think about Tony Soprano, or Don Draper, or Gregory House. We know them intimately in all of their cruelty and destruction, in all of their grace and moral complexity. We've traveled with them, it seems, through every inch of their progress, as well as through their many steps backwards. Basically, there's one reason TV is so great right now, and it is The Sopranos. Throughout its 86 episodes, The Sopranos was a drama that could withstand the impassioned scrutiny formerly reserved for film and books. Thanks to revelatory acting, psychologically rich scripting, and dazzling camera work, creator David K. Chase's series earned the respect given to films by auteurs such as Martin Scorsese and Francis Ford Coppola. With The Sopranos, TV's business model changed almost overnight. Suddenly, viewers were willing to flip to cable channels, something that before The Sopranos in 1999 they were unwilling to do. I mean, I don't know if any of you remember, there was a time when, I mean, you would stay on the 4 or 5 big networks and that was it. I mean, nobody was going to, 57 or 125 or whatever. And The Sopranos really kind of propelled people into the kind of dark reaches of cable, which was huge. And on cable, TV writers don't need to worry about pleasing advertisers by creating likable heroes and heroines and forcing happy endings. On cable, the writers can do what they like to do, which is to dig into the gray areas, identify ambiguities and dive into them, push the viewer into identifying with both the virtuous and the unscrupulous, the kind and the harsh. TV characters no longer had to be either heroes or villains. They could be both, or a bit of both. TV writers like Matthew Weiner and Alan Ball were suddenly able to be brutally honest in their storytelling. And that's a critical element of powerful storytelling. Honestly portraying life's difficulties and complexities as well as its moments of pleasure. Not just showing a comfort food vision of a life of peace and happiness. With the success of The Sopranos, there was no longer a need to gloss over the ugly sides of human nature in order to make viewers happy and sell them products. That's why that's why TV is no longer a boob tube or a media box or a television. It's the I love it. Television. I'm sorry, I'm so hot. I don't know if anyone else is. Probably up here. Schwitzen. It is now the creatively rich home of some intensely challenging dramas that invite you to think about what you were seeing and think about what you were feeling. Walter White on Breaking Bad is a wicked man, right? But why don't I hate him? Why does Nurse Jackie keep destroying her happy life? Does Dr. House's medical genius compensate for his all-round nastiness? Provoking questions like these in viewers is part of the brilliance of these shows. When you didn't finish an episode of Marcus Welby, MD, and think, what did that mean? What, is he a good person? Is he a bad, he's a good guy, he was a hero, and that was that. And he fixed the world, and we all wanted to see him as our doctor. These new post-Soprano shows don't spoon-feed the narrative to you. They require you to work to piece everything together, something you'll understand if you've watched The Wire. It's really a challenging experience, keeping track of all the characters. The writers don't sneak in recap dialogue to remind you of what happened last week. They expect you to pay attention and remember. They cultivate active viewing. That's why people are no longer embarrassed to admit they watch TV. It's not a wasteland anymore. Before The Sopranos, I had this conversation at almost every party I attended. So what do you do for a living? Me, I'm the TV critic for the Boston Globe. Them, oh, I never watch TV. It's all so awful. Maybe I watch PBS every once in a while. Now people are in a completely different place. They openly rush to talk about TV and their shows. House of Cards, Orange is the New Black, Fargo, Louis, Rectify, Shameless, Masters of Sex. All shows that are really interesting and layered. The post-Sopranos revolution is why TV is frequently compared to Victorian serial novels by critics, including me. There is something similar about watching weekly installments of great TV and reading chapters by Dickens, Gaskell, Thackeray, and my favorite, Trollope. No, you aren't performing the act of reading when you watch these shows. The act of reading is unique and precious and essential. But when you watch smart TV, you are definitely using your brain, listening carefully to the dialogue, and processing what you hear. If you look at the internet the morning after an episode of Mad Men, you see countless recappers psychoanalyzing and dissecting characters in the manner of literature class. I mean, that's what it's like. You see people savoring every aspect of the story they've been told. But ultimately, whether you're reading or watching your stories, it's all about listening to stories. That's why maybe it's not so weird that a TV critic is speaking at the library. the viewers of good TV and the readers of good books and are all lovers and supporters and devotees and groupies and addicts of storytelling. This library is a giant testament to the value of stories, not just one story, but multitudes of stories, pathways that lead you into other people's consciousnesses, that take you out of yourself and expand your understanding of the world. Stories show us what we all share as human beings and what we each bring to the table as individual voices. Stories test our sympathy, expand our perspectives, and change our minds. Storytelling is an essential human activity, our way of giving order to chaos. I love being a TV critic because I get to listen to these stories and I get paid for doing it. And I'll tell you about what I do for the Globe, but again, I hope you'll have questions. Basically, as a critic, I try to do two things for the reader. First of all, I try to help people find the good stuff. I keep an eye on as much as possible since there's so much TV to choose from right now, and to then point readers in the right direction. I watch approximately 20 to 25 hours of TV a week, from which I try to do some ruthless cherry picking for Globe readers. Of course, we all occasionally want downtime to watch escapist nonsense, and that's fine. My husband Tom and I watch Chicago Fire every week, despite the fact that it's extremely formulaic and the characters are cardboard cutouts. And some of my friends have told me about something called The Real Housewives, although I've never watched it. Ever. But I love directing people toward the quality stories, like a TV GPS. These days, people can curate their own personal TV lineups. We no longer need to sit back passively and submit to whatever the networks serve to us. We have DVRs and on-demand and Netflix and Hulu. We should only watch what we want to watch, in the same way we only read what we choose to read. And I love helping people fill up their TV queues with thought-provoking shows. The second thing I try to do as a TV critic is to interpret a show and open up some of its meanings, which is another way of saying that I try to be a smarty pants in the newspaper. I don't just want to give a thumbs up or a thumbs down. I want to dig into the psychology of the characters, since TV creators are giving us characters you can talk about as if you're talking about real people. I want to explore how the show writers work with the conventions of TV storytelling, and I want to put the show in context with TV history. And when a show is awful, and I have to review it, I still try to bring added relevance. What does this show say about our culture? What does it say about our culture that we have embraced reality TV so readily? Are we celebrating exhibitionism, worshiping fame? Do we care that there are cameras everywhere? These are the kinds of questions a critic can ponder while trashing a show. And by the way, negative reviews are much easier to write than positive reviews, which is really true. It's a lot easier to be snarky and dismissive of something and make fun of it than it is to put your judgment on the line and persuade the reader that something is good. And that's it. I'm going to cut it there because I'm curious to hear what y'all have to say. Hey.
Would you say that network TV used to be better? Didn't used to be better? I'm thinking of one of my favorite network TV shows, Homicide: Life on the Street.
Yes.
So,
Absolutely.
what happened to shows like that?
Homicide and NYPD Blue, Hill Street Blues in its day. They're the exceptions. I mean, right now, The Good Wife. It's amazing. I would say network TV has gotten worse in a way because they can't compete with cable. They can't do quality dramas. There's only one really fine drama on TV, network TV, as far as I'm concerned, which is The Good Wife. Well, no, that's not. That's cable.
But it
Basically.
adds.
It does, and I'll address that in a second. So most of the network TV dramas have become procedurals. I mean, really, they're all, and reality TV, and CSI shows, NCIS shows, there's Shonda Rhimes, but that's kind of.
So do you have an explanation?
think that people who want to watch quality TV are no longer looking at the networks for it. And so they can put on a good show and no one's going to watch it. The people who are watching the networks for the most part now are looking for the self-contained episodes, the likable characters, you know, that don't challenge you. And network TV tried for a little while to compete with cable and just couldn't do it. So that's my take on it. Are you disappointed?
No, I really like Homicide and was disappointed when nothing like it seemed to
Yeah.
come after.
That's right. Because and Homicide did not do well. Homicide hung on by the skin of its teeth for years. I mean, the ratings were horrible. NBC did it for reasons that are you know, probably have more to do with internal politics than anything else, or prestige. You know, they were hoping maybe to get some Emmy recognition, but the viewership was very low. The basic cable channels are sort of a hybrid. They do have ads, but they don't have to deal with standards and practices of network TV. And they also get money from cable subscriptions. They don't get as much as HBO, but people do pay to get the basic cable channels. So it means they're making more money, they're less restricted creatively. So you won't see the same nudity that you see on HBO, Game of Thrones, for instance, that you won't see that on FX. Well, FX is close, but you really won't, and you won't see it on AMC because of that distinction. Hi.
How do you categorize PBS?
PBS is a unique, strange, necessary animal. You mean in terms of
Because there's
business model?
storytelling and there's also
Documentary.
documentaries and discovery and history and
Yes.
all the different elements. It's like an encyclopedia.
Yeah.
It covers many topics,
Yes.
but it does have dramas.
It does. Yeah, PBS is great. I mean, because it's such a mishmash. I mean, sometimes I'm frustrated with it. I wish they would have more scripted drama. I feel like they have so much documentary that it's overwhelming for viewers. And, you know, I mean, Frontline is incredibly serious. POV has its moments. You know, I mean, there are some great documentaries, but they're all just mishmashed, and it's a little. I think they lose some viewers in the process. I tried to focus in this small talk on the scripted drama because that seems to be the thing right now. But you know, there's a lot of great documentary stuff on PBS, but also on some of the cable networks. I mean, the Planet Earth series.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, those are just
Yeah.
brilliant and wonderful. So, you know, as you know, it's such a cliche, but it's the best of times, it's the worst of times for TV. I mean, you've got the reality crap that nobody I know watches, and then you've got the, you know, you've got this amazing stuff that's competing with movies and actually, I think, beating. You know, it's hard to generalize, but beating movies and drawing top-notch talent. I mean, Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson just made True Detective for HBO, which is a great show. I mean, he just won an Oscar, you know. So it's kind of cool.
I know your list is not meant to be exhaustive, but
Yeah.
I'm curious what you think of particularly Homeland. It seemed to me they had jumped the shark last time they were on in a way that just kind of lost me. But before that, I was devoted to
Yeah.
Homeland.
That's sad. One of the executive producers of 24, of Homeland, was, and happens all the time. You know, these shows are great, and then they have to go on and on. In England, the seasons tend to be much shorter, and I think it's a good thing. But yeah, Homeland just lost it. I think the first season was so great in the premise, but the premise just wasn't durable. That would be an interesting piece to just sit down and really dissect what went wrong with Homeland.
Frankly, I think Nurse Jackie has lost it.
Really?
I do. Just as, you know, one self-made destructive crisis after another, and I'm just tired of it.
Yeah.
I want,
Well, you know what? I'm
I
tired
want
of you.
salvation.
No, I mean, I actually feel quite differently. I understand why you're saying that, and I felt that way a little last season, but it's so uncompromising. I mean, they are showing a woman who is an addict, and she's a hero as a nurse.
Yeah.
And she's amazing in that hospital, but she is an
Talk
addict.
about moral ambiguity.
That's right, and it's a disease, and she can't, you know, she can't stop herself. And so I admire the show for persisting with that. Instead of giving us, you know, a quick happy ending, she went to rehab and now everything's great. I mean, they're really showing that she's a junkie. You know, and that's, I admire that. Of course, Edie Falco, I think, is just awesome. You don't get acting like that every day.
You started it all.
She did, as Carmela Soprano. Amazing, amazing performance. And she was on Oz, too, which was an early HBO show. Very dark. Hey.
There's been a few series that the people developing it or whatever have gone into saying, we'll only run this for X number of years. I think Breaking Bad was one, earlier Babylon 5. Do you think there's a chance that there'll be more of that?
I do, and I love it when I hear that. You know, I love it when the makers of Lost finally, you know, they didn't do it right from the outset, but I think they were 3 or 4 seasons in, and they realized, you know what, we don't want to make a complete mess of this. You know, they did. You know, they understood that they needed an end point, and since then, a number of shows have done that, and it's a great thing. It's a great.
Fantasy and science fiction tend to jump the shark, so.
Right. But Mad Men is doing it. What else? You know, believe me, HBO would have killed to have The Sopranos run longer than 6 seasons. You know, as it was, they stretched it out, broke up the seasons. They were the first ones to break up seasons. You know, but the creators of those shows had some integrity and said, you know, we have no more creative fuel for this, and if we keep it going, we'll lose our legacy. You know, I mean, that's, I thought Arrested Development was perfect. 3 seasons, brilliant comedy, original, witty, so perfect. And then they came back and they did a 4th season, you know, 10 years later. And now it's not, so, you know, this 4th season was weird and mediocre, and that, in my opinion, and now the legacy has been blown as far as I'm concerned. So, hey.
What do you think of TV as sort of like a communal language that we used to have because there were so few networks? You know, everybody watched everything, and you could, you know, it was water cooler gossip all the time. And now it just feels like there's kind of the haves and the have-nots, the people who have cable, you know, and watch cable series, and those who don't. And you can't possibly watch all the things there are to watch, except if you're you. But, you know, so what do you think that's done with the role of TV as a kind of community-building device?
I think that is a great loss. Although I wouldn't say that it's over. I mean, the whole binge-watching thing and the whole DVR on-demand things have definitely cut into it. But I think people still have, there's still communities around shows. They're not necessarily water cooler communities so much as online communities. But you know, every week when a new episode of Mad Men is over, if you watch Twitter or if you go online to your favorite critics, you see lots of activity interpreting the episode and analyzing it and discussing it online, but still. So there's still a sense of community to some extent. I think there will always be live network events, you know, sports games, reality TV,
National
finales.
crises,
Excuse me?
national crises.
National crises and award shows. So we'll always have some of those. But I think it's a loss in terms of the water pump cooler, you know, the personal stuff. I don't know. I'm not giving you a great answer there, right? Yeah, I mean, I think there's some loss there. I think there's a loss, but it's not completely gone. I do feel that there are still communities around shows and people do still interact about the shows. So it's not like we're all going off into our own little pods and watching and never, you know, sharing it. But it is different now, you know. I mean, often someone will say, oh, you know, I'll say, have you seen Orange is the New Black? And say, yes, but don't say anything. I'm on episode 3, you know. And I guess we can't talk about it. So, you know, whereas when you're all watching a show together, it's, you know, you're talking about it all week. And, so I'm not a big binge watch fan. Sorry. Hey.
I remember when television came out that there was only like ABC, CBS, and NBC, and I was surprised to find a few months ago that there's like probably 100 times as many specialty channels now. Do you follow Andrew Zimmerman? Andrew Zimmerman on the Travel Channel?
No. Oh, that's right. Is it Zimmer, right?
No.
Yes.
Oh, anyway.
Yes.
Yeah, because he came to my place to film for a week, and so I had to look up, you know, what does this guy do?
That's exciting.
So I guess I can't answer the question. I'll ask you something else.
Okay.
Is that I have found that I had to watch about 500 episodes of The Simpsons at least twice with my kids to make sure that we didn't miss anything. How often do you have to see an episode of The Simpsons to catch everything? You know, written on the wall and, you know, the multi-level.
Oh, it's amazing. It's brilliant. I love that. And 30 Rock, too. 30 Rock was like that. I found I had to, I didn't have to, but if I rewatched an episode, there was more there for me. And I love shows like that, where they, you know, Arrested Development is like that, too. They move fast.
That's the only TV show, you know, that I watched. I mean, like I've never seen any of these shows that you mentioned here. Like The Sopranos, Freaks and Greeks. Oh, Geeks.
But you've heard of The Sopranos, right? I mean, before tonight?
Oh yeah, I've seen them advertised, but
Yeah, they made fun of it on The Simpsons, right?
Oh really? No, like I don't have a TV, but but my kids have TVs, and so I go watch.
I'm kind of honored that you're here.
Well, I mean, the only reason why I watched all those episodes with them is that I find that since The Simpsons, you know, like laugh at smoking and drinking and doing drugs, is that by laughing with my kids is that they've grown up not picking up any of those bad habits like gambling.
Watching TV.
That's not how that goes.
Yeah, keep us posted on that.
We were talking about Homeland before, and it's one of many current remakes from European series, and I'm curious as to whether you think it's a good idea or a bad idea, or just an idea and the producers are looking for something to create a program for, and this has already been successful in another place like Israel or Denmark with the killing or
Treatment.
yeah, there's like a ton of them.
Right.
In fact, House of Cards, I discovered recently is a remake, like a BBC series or something like that. So I don't know what.
I mean, I have no problem with it. I mean, I think why not? You know, if there's a sturdy concept out there, why not, bring it to America and reinterpret it for our sensibility. I thought In Treatment was an awesome show, you know, and it was 3 seasons, 3 great seasons and out. But that's, I'm glad they imported that from Israel, and I believe the creator of the show was also an executive producer on the American version, so, he made sure that it was probably not too American. But, The Office, I think the American Office was great. It went on way too long. It should have been over after 5 seasons. The British Office was 2 seasons and 1 special, 2 very short seasons, 2 6-episode seasons, and then a finale. So, it went on way too long, but when it was good, it was great, I thought. So, why not,
I mean, there's been some failures, and then some where I guess they decided it wasn't a good idea, or they just didn't get it off the ground. I was talking to somebody today about the IT Crowd,
Right,
the ABC series.
right.
We were going to do an American version, and then it didn't happen. And we were talking, that's probably a good idea.
Right. Well, we have, Silicon Valley, and,
Right.
But not that it's the IT Crowd, but yeah, I think.
The idea of taking, if people know about the original series and they enjoyed it, however they saw it through TV or what have you, and then there's an American version and it kind of ruins it for you because it's an inferior version, then one wonders why remake it in the first place.
Yeah.
I guess if just Americans are looking to make a quick buck or something like that.
Sometimes they're better.
Yeah, it can be, but it's sort of like covering a.
This is better, I think. I watched the book.
Yeah.
It's kind of like covering a hit song, and if you don't do as good a job, then it's sort of
That's
shameful.
It's a trick, you're right. It is a tricky proposition to take something that's good. The Office did that. I mean, the British Office was a cult here in the States. I mean, we all knew what it was before the American Office premiered. And it didn't intrude on my affection for the original, personally. But it is tricky. It is tricky. Yeah, great.
I think House of Cards actually improves to stand both to compare the British way of doing things to the American.
Yeah, yeah.
I hated that show. I haven't tried it again after the first episode. I just don't like the characters. I'll try it again because I love it. I just don't like it.
Yeah, when you open with a dead dog, killing a dog, you lose a lot.
What do you think about Fargo, which is a...
I love it.
I do too.
It's fantastic.
Which,
It's fantastic. This is Fargo, which is
yeah.
a TV show
Based
on
on the
FX.
movie?
It's produced by the Coen brothers.
It is?
It's sort of loosely based on their movie, but they've sort of rejiggered it a bit and stretched out the plot and thrown in some twists so you really don't know what's going to happen.
No, they don't have a chipper.
Not yet. No chipper yet. There was the hole in the ice.
Oh, wonderful.
And is it really based on a true story?
I don't believe so.
I don't believe
How
so.
can they start like
That's
that?
a joke.
Yeah.
That's a joke.
Is that a network show or is that a?
It's basic cable again,
Yeah,
so it's
it's
FX.
What happened to Deadwood?
Deadwood,
It was sensation.
it was great. It,
Just anyhow.
yeah, it
Disappeared.
was an expensive show to make for HBO, and it did not do well enough. Same thing with Carnival. Even a paid cable channel has to deem a show worthy, financially. I mean, if people aren't responding, enough people aren't responding to it. I mean, The Wire was an exception. The Wire did really poorly. The Wire brought in fewer viewers than Deadwood, but it was less expensive to make, and it was just such a prestige situation that, yeah.
So on maybe a personal level, I was, personal for me and maybe personal for you, I was devastated when you moved off of the television desk to the book desk, and never expect you to come back. Because I guess my perception was somehow books were more prestigious. I'm just curious how all that happened and whether you're happy how it landed
very happy with how it ended up. You know, it was complicated, but basically they felt that I was more important, you know, valuable on the TV beat. And you know, I was fine either way. I would have been happy to be, you know, a book writer or a TV writer, because I think they're both, as I was talking about, they're both stories. You know, they're both about storytelling, and you know, so on that level, I think I would find enough to grab on and have it be. But you know, it was great to come back to TV. I really felt good about that. You know, they like me. They really like me. One of those situations. So, but thank you. Thank you for noticing.
I have just two quick things. One is in following what this woman said, the cultural sort of landmark of Andy Davis on the other day.
Yeah.
Something that, I mean, it wasn't that she was my favorite actress or anything, but everybody of my age and, you know, a certain number of years older and younger, we all knew her and we all talked about it.
Yeah.
So I do think that that's something that isn't as prevalent now, because we aren't all watching 8 o'clock TV on Friday nights.
Right.
The other thing I wanted to mention is that I was relatively new to Twitter during the first season of Downton Abbey, and I sat with my parents, and my father said, "What are you doing? You're not looking at the TV all the time."
Yeah.
And a couple friends and I had agreed to live tweet, which I didn't even know there was an expression for it then. And it was an amazing phenomenon to me that I felt as if I personally was responsible for several hundred people becoming fans. I think that's why, one of the reasons, because of the social media aspect that the first season took off, even though I know many, many people who joined in later on. But what was so interesting to me was not just strangers reaching out to me saying, "Oh, I agree with you about X, Y, or Z," but PBS asking people to live tweet and getting them involved. And it was just such an interesting, and now it seems very common, but that was the first time I noticed it and was aware of it.
Yeah, it's great. And now, sometimes the actors from the show will live tweet during a show as well. So, you know, the producers and networks love it. You know, it's developing a culture around the show.
Even the Good Wife designer now seems very active, and those are, you know, that's not as interesting as hearing the characters, but sometimes it's very, I guess the designer of Downton Abbey would be more interesting to me than the designer of the Good Wife, but I still look.
Yeah. No, I mean, and so that's the way it is now. It's sort of people do share experiences, but not necessarily together. Well, with each other. See, that's the community around the show.
It is. It's a different community. I remember a show that I used to love, Homefront, was saved by people writing, I think, to Ann Landers.
Right.
It was saved for one extra season. It was John Slattery's first big break.
That's right.
But now people would be emailing the producers and tweeting and Facebooking, and they might have more luck because it's easier to do that than to send a letter.
That's right. That's right. It's fascinating. I mean, it's a trade-off. On the one hand, we get to watch what we want when we want to watch it, and that's great to have that control. You know, you're not just sitting there watching the Brady Bunch because it's all that's on. You know, you're deciding what you want to watch. You can pick and choose your time, and so I like that. You know, that sort of active viewing approach. But at the same time, yes, you definitely there's something that's lost. Hey.
How much TV did your parents let you watch?
I was raised by TV.
Raised by TV. Unlimited?
Too?
No, there's some limits. I could watch it all the time.
Yeah. I had no limits. I watched it all the time. And I remember feeling like Dick Van Dyke, you know, watching reruns of the Dick Van Dyke show. This guy, I want to live in that world. I want to be him, or I want him to be my father, you know. And I felt I had very strong attachments to my TV shows. So here I am.
Getting back to your economic justifications, do you think that the Travel Channel and History Channel and the Discovery Channel will stay in business?
Oh yeah, they're huge.
Wow.
Oh yeah, big, they're very big.
I'll take
Lots
your
of
word for it.
Yeah, yeah. When Andrew Zimmern does your restaurant, a lot of people will see it.
No, he just shot through to the Florida Keys at my island, you know, for a week.
Oh, I see. But, yeah, no, those networks are very.
But, you know, like the History Channel wants a year-long commitment, and Discovery Channel wants to come back all the time, so I was just wondering.
Yeah.
I'd like your take on the comedy shows, Jon Stewart, Colbert Report, those type of shows.
I love them. They're amazing.
What would we do without them?
Exactly.
How would we know what was going on?
That's right. It's true. It's true. It's so refreshing. It's so great. I mean, they're so brilliantly written. These people, these staffs of writers go through clips and come up with some, I mean, it's powerful stuff.
It is.
It's very politically, explosive sometimes. You see the hypocrisy that they discover. So I love those shows. John Oliver has a show now, which is excellent.
Yes, and I don't have HBO, so how can I watch them?
Well,
What am I gonna do?
HBO they're starting to come around in terms of the viral clips. So I don't know if you're online, but.
No, I'm not on anything.
Okay.
I don't even have a.
Then you're screwed.
Come to the library.
Because you would really like John Oliver if you like.
Well, I love John Oliver, yes.
Yeah, right, you
Yeah.
know,
Okay,
it's a
yes,
radio
of
show, and now
course.
he's doing his own thing, it's weekly.
I'm so happy for him.
Really
Miss
well
him on
done.
the John
Also on
Stewart.
HBO, Bill Maher. It's good. I mean, those shows are fantastic, you know. I mean, I think Saturday Night Live kind of started it in a way. They don't get credit for that, really.
I think you're right. You're right. That's what they would, especially the Weekend Update.
That's what I mean,
Yeah.
the Weekend Update, really. But, yeah.
So getting back to that intersection between the internet and TV, which is really coming together, and your comments about how writers can now demand a lot of their viewers. I came to Game of Thrones late, and without being goaded into it, I went to online just so I could see the family tree and make sense of it. And now I see that that's a regular thing they're doing, where they're inviting you to go to HBO.com. Bill Maher does that, you know, you want to steal more of this interview, do that. I'm also aware that people of younger generations watch all their TV on the computer.
Yes,
So any comments or thoughts about it?
Well, I think it's great when they have extras online. They want to drive traffic to their websites. I'm tired of hearing executive producers and showrunners explain their shows to people. You know, I don't know if any of you read the online, follow this stuff online, but after, any important episode of Mad Men, Matthew Weiner gives a series of interviews and he talks about what he tried to do in the episode, what everything meant. I don't like that. Let the episodes stand on their own. I don't want to hear the two producers of Lost, doing, a podcast or going on the radio the following morning after an episode and telling us what they tried to do. Just let us figure it out. If it's not in the episode, then what?
Do you like the Breaking Bad last season?
I don't.
After that, after, you
You
didn't like that either?
Oh, I don't mind if just sort of regular folks or actors are sitting around talking about it, but I don't want to hear the writers telling us what they meant to do.
What about when Will Gardner died? Don't you think that was an exception?
I wanted to hear why the Josh Charles story. So I did read what the producers had to say about why he left the show and what he had to say about that. But I didn't want to hear them explaining, the scene of his death and why they did it this way, and let the scene stand on its own.
He said his contract was up.
That's right. Well, his contract was up after the 5th season, yes, and that he decided that he would only do half of the 6th season, and because he was burnt out, he was tired of playing the same character.
Are you talking about Sports Night or Dead Poets Society? It took me a while to figure out you're talking about Goodway.
Yes, Good Light. Yes, his character was killed, and it was a big shock. Nobody knew.
Like the Downton Abbey story, which everybody's so mad about, I guess.
Yeah, well, that leaked because it aired in England first.
Oh,
So some of us knew about that. You know, I looked at my Google News feed for entertainment, and it was in some of the headlines. You know, they killed off Matthew.
I just want to make myself less popular with the crowd here and say I didn't like Downton Abbey either. So, yeah, and how far is Downton Abbey if you're keeping score?
Yeah. Every crowd has one. Oh, hey, you.
Going into sideways, but the Boston Globe recently had the article on slumlords. And within a week, everybody was up in arms, the mayor was involved, the universities were involved. And I don't see news stories on television having the same effect. I mean, they have all these documentaries. Do they have any effect on the way people think?
Well, do you mean like the nightly news?
Yeah.
They don't do much reporting.
No, even, the nightly news, even some of the documentaries that are supposed to.
Well,
Do they actually have an effect? I don't know.
Yeah, there are some shows, some documentary series on PBS that do sort of go after or break news, in the way the Spotlight team and Globe does. But the local news channels don't. They don't have the infrastructure for it. They're very small staff, believe it or not. Nobody watches the nightly news, so they have to keep upping the ante on idiocy, covering ridiculous stories. I mean, in the same way that CNN covered the disappearance of that plane, to a ridiculous degree. So there are a few shows like that, and that's why PBS is so valuable, and that's why Frontline, is just a really important show.
Do you ever get beat down?
I do. You know what? I love it. It's funny. This thing went on a little bit further, and I did say that the people who watch TV are so interactive, and it's one of my favorite things about writing about TV. Is, I hear about what people think of my opinions all the time, and I love that. And if they didn't agree with me, great. It's fun. It's fascinating. I've been doing this for so long that I don't take it personally. The first few years, if somebody sent me a hate email or called and went off on my voicemail, I really was upset. Now I think it's great. It rolls off my back, and I welcome it. So please send me hate email.
Can you talk about your book?
Of course. Yeah, it comes out at the end of July. It's called Off the Leash: A Year at the Dog Park, and it's about the subculture of dog parks. In my experience, going to the dog park, getting my first dog, and sort of discovering this world of dog people that I'd never really known about. And I don't know if any of you have dogs or if you go to dog parks, but dog park people are eccentric and wonderful and neurotic and crazy, and it's a real interesting little subculture. So, and for me, going to the dog park became a great escape from, the digital leash, that I live in, which involves watching TV and sitting online and watching TV online, and, so.
Is that what you meant by the title, Off the Leash?
Yes, well, it's meant both ways. So it's end of July.
Can you purchase it now?
No, but you can order it. If you want, you can pre-order it online at Amazon or at Barnes & Noble or at IndieBound.
Can you purchase it through Booksmith?
And you can buy it at Booksmith, and I'll be reading at Booksmith on August 5th.
Great.
So.
And we'll have it at the library.
Good. Good. And
Will we recognize some of the people in the book?
I'm sorry?
Will we recognize some of our friends friends who bring their dogs to Amory Park?
I hope not. I tried to disguise everybody, and you know, most of the people in the book are composite characters. So, you know, one character in the book is actually 4 different people, and so I don't think I'll hurt any feelings. I think it'll be okay.
So it's nonfiction, but you disguise the identities of something.
That's right. Yeah,
so memoir.
It's memoir, and everything happened. Really, it's just a snapshot of the year, my first year at the dog park, and it's all about me and my dog, and how my life changed, and how the dog park actually does change people's lives. It's sort of a daily escape for a lot of people, and I've formed some really lovely bonds with people there. So it's just sort of a homage to that.
So you sampled different dog parks in town?
I did not. I have been to many dog parks, but this book is just primarily focused on Amory Park.
Because I have a dog, the friends that do it for dog park, people say the cultures are very different.
They are and they aren't. You know, there are certain universals, I think. You know, there are dog fights, and there are owner fights, and there are people who don't pick up their poop. We hate them. And people who pick up other people's poop because they're so nice. So,
I have another back to TV question. I'm wondering how you view what HBO has been doing in, you know, creating their own films, and what Netflix has been doing, like with Orange is the New Black and House of Cards. And do you really consider that TV, or is it film being shown on TV?
I mean, that's the great thing. I would say yes. You know, I mean, it's kind of both. And TV, why not look at TV as a 13-hour movie that returns every year? You know, if you want to, because I think in some cases it's as good as that. You know, if you think of some good movies, I think it's as good as that. Watching Mad Men to me is just like that. I feel like I've watched, I don't know how many episodes they've had, maybe 70 or 80 episodes, I think. It's been, you know, it's been like watching a really long, detailed movie with all of the, you know, 1 step forward, 2 steps backwards of real life that most movies can't accommodate. So, yeah. Hey.
What are your top 3 TV series of all time?
Oh boy, it's different every day, but The Sopranos to me is just like the, you know, not just because of its significance in the way that I described in my opening, but I just loved everything about it, the acting, I mean, I've gone back and watched early episodes, and all over again, I'm in awe, you know, of James Gandolfini and Michael Imperioli, and, you know, Edie Falco. The scripts are funny, and I love the fact that it's all through a psychological perspective, because of the therapy. Which is why I think I like it better than The Wire. The Wire to me is more of a sociological, view of urban life, and it's not as intimate with the characters. I like The Sopranos. It gets right up into these characters' lives. So definitely Sopranos. You know, The Twilight Zone to me is an all-time. That's a show. Is still so influential and important. And you know, you watch those old episodes and they move so slowly. I mean, it's like you feel like you're having a stroke. Not that I've had a stroke, but you feel like that's what it must be like. Because they're just so slow, but boy, they're wise and they're provocative and they make you think, and they still are relevant in terms of, you know, our world and science and psychology. So there are 2. And then that third one changes a lot. Breaking Bad would probably fill up that third space. Yeah, I'm gonna go with that today.
Thank you so much.
What are yours?
Oh, I don't know. I do like, I don't watch enough TV, that's the problem.
Oh, that is a problem.
It is a problem. I'm very old fashioned. I like watching Downton Abbey on Sunday nights at 9 o'clock or Masterpiece Theater. I did like Mr. Selfridge a lot, I have to say.
Oh, good. Yeah, I liked Mr. Selfridge, but I didn't like Jeremy Piven. I just.
Yeah.
I agree. He was just the wrong person.
Do you think the writing has changed? I watch a lot of old movies, and one of the things that I enjoy actually is how fully written they were. And I think about television, and I think that, well, what do you think? Has television changed through the years, the way that stories are written?
Absolutely. I think, there's so much more sophisticated now, in my opinion. I mean, there's something lovely about watching old movies and old TV shows where the characters are kind of simple in a way. They're either good guys or bad guys. That has its pleasures, but now I think it's much more interesting to watch the TV writers. And TV is a writer's medium. Movies are a director's medium. The director has all of it, but the writers drive a TV show forward. Everything comes out from what they decide, how they tell the story. And so I think these new shows are so much more sophisticated, and they're darker, but that's okay. I mean, I want to see life represented as closely.
They're more real.
They're more real. They're painful sometimes, but I like that. I'm a student of life, and so I don't want to shy away from that kind of stuff. I want to watch it and feel it.
Yes, when CBS finally showed the second half of the second season, Unforgettable, in the spring, there was a quite favorable Times review, and one of the points that it made, apart from the fact that probably the show shouldn't have been canceled after the first season, was that there's a lot of quality television, much of which you've referred to, and it needs to find a niche.
Right.
And it isn't given, the programs aren't given enough time to find that niche, and I don't think you agree with that.
Well, every network has its own ratings needs. So I think a channel like HBO or even FX or AMC will give a show a little bit more time than the networks. The networks need to bring in viewers because that's how they pay their bills. It's hard to simplify, but if you got 1 million viewers on a show on HBO would be okay with that. I mean, Girls, which is considered a hit, only brings in about 1 million viewers a week. On a network, that would be gone in a week. Because
how do we determine that? As somebody who's never been called by Nielsen,
right.
80 years, how does the viewers get?
it's like a poll, they have Nielsen homes. They've asked certain homes to become Nielsen homes. I think they give them a small stipend, and they change homes periodically. I don't know how many they have, probably 4,000 or whatever the mathematically correct number is to have a fair sampling. And those are the Nielsen ratings. And now they also factor in anyone who records a show and watches it that day, later that day, that gets counted. And they have ratings that are include anyone who watched it live or within 3 days. And then they also have a rating number for people who watched it live and then within 7 days. So they're becoming more sophisticated
Is
now.
that only series, or is that like live TV as well? Is that everything, or is that just?
That's a good question. I think it's everything.
It's not very precise.
Yeah, it's probably not precise, but you know, not every network cares about having the most viewers. Some of them care more about having specific viewers, like the CW, which is a network that caters to teens. I mean, if they get 3 million teens on the show, that are primarily teenagers or young people, they're happy, because their advertisers are happy. If you have pimple cream, you go to the CW, and you're going to get those viewers. So the business models are very complex, and they're different for basic cable, pay cable, and networks.
But have you ever cable box? Does the cable company have the capacity to wire everything we want?
No. I'm being told no. I don't
Security.
Oh, did they do that? I mean, I bet that they could, but do they? And are they allowed to? I don't think so. I know that if you have TiVo, you probably are being monitored. And you probably sign your rights away.
But that limits their statistics to only people who have TiVo, make it very select.
That very many people at cable anymore.
Right. But that TiVo would have its own use or its own statistics. They wouldn't be the Nielsen ratings or but that's a whole different thing. But
Well, I think we have kept Matt up there. You're still willing
oh,
to
I'm
answer?
fine.
Okay, as long as you are.
I'm fine, but I don't want to keep anyone who wants to go.
I just wanted to ask about what your opinion is of sort of the new television, which is these internet sites, Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, others that are creating their own programming and producing their own programming, and how they're distributing it and how they're promoting it or not promoting it.
Right.
And also, what do you think of the quality of these programs?
Yeah. I mean, to me, the more the merrier. The more competition there is, the more good shows we'll get. So I don't have a problem with it. And I think some of them are good. I mean, we've talked about a few Netflix shows.
Yeah.
Hulu, I think Hulu has Moon Boy, which is sweet as can be, with Chris O'Dowd, who's from the IT crowd.
So here's the thing about Netflix that I don't understand. Maybe it's because I'm just old enough to not get it. The whole idea of putting the whole season on at once and to encourage binge watching, and that they're not really promoting it in the way that traditional TV promotes it through press. The assumption is that users are going to find out about it within the site, so they don't have to spend a lot of money or time promoting the series. Like the first series they put out with Lilyhammer. Does anybody know about that? Probably not, because I read something that someone at Netflix said that, the users will just find it.
Yeah.
How are they going to find it if they don't know it exists?
Well, actually, Lilyhammer was their first outing, but Orange is the New Black is getting the...
Well, it has, but there's other series that aren't getting, like, I'm sure, I keep finding out about stuff that's on there that I had no idea, and if I didn't find it out, like, some second-hand way, I have no idea it was there. Like, I found out recently that Reese Darby from Flight of the Conchords, who played the manager for the two musicians, has a series on Netflix. I almost didn't know about it. I found out by mistake listening to a podcast.
Well, that's an imported series, so they're not producing that themselves. They're bringing that in, or in Australia or New Zealand or wherever it was made. But they do promote their shows, the ones that matter to them. They promote them very heavily. House of Cards and Orange is the New Black. Both shows have had
I thought they they were mostly getting promotion because they were spending a lot of money trying to get Emmy nominations and stuff like that?
No, even before they premiere, you know, like right now, Orange is the New Black is coming out on June 6th, and it's inescapable from, you know, where I'm sitting.
Yeah,
And I'm seeing promotion everywhere.
Plus,
they also have a lot of captive viewers with Netflix.
Yeah.
Who already subscribe to Netflix.
Yeah.
I mean, people are curious about what their ratings are because they're not being monitored by Nielsen, so nobody knows how many people actually watched House of Cards or Orange is the New Black. You know, so it's kind of mysterious whether it's worth it for them in some ways to produce their own shows, but I'm assuming it is.
Don't they have to download those shows? So that's
Oh, they know.
They know. Oh, okay, I thought you were saying
They know how many people are watching it, but how many people who are watching it were already subscribers, and how many people are coming to Netflix in order to watch it? You know, stuff like that. So.
But I had a follow-up question about Amazon. What do you think of the whole idea of letting viewers decide from a pilot season? And have you seen any Amazon shows? And if so, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a bad idea. I don't like that. I'd rather have them just serve things to us. I don't want to get what I want. You know, I want them to give me something. It's creepy to me. Actually Netflix did that with House of Cards. They sort of studied their statistics about which actors would be most popular, which kind of show. You know, they had all these numbers that they put together, and as a result, they realized that a remake of House of Cards starring Kevin Spacey, Robin Wright, you know, blah blah blah, would be, you know, so it's almost like Frankenstein. You know, I don't like that. I'd much rather have a creative person with a vision, like Matthew Weiner, or you know, or David E. Kelly back in the old days, you know, or Vince Gilligan. Have a vision and get it made and get it out there. I think those are the kinds of shows that I prefer. You know, bring us into your vision. Don't give us a vision that you think we'll like. You know, it's like a sequel. You know, a sequel movie. Well, we liked the first one, so let's give them another one. You know, it's like that.
Did you see any of the Amazon pilots?
I did sample a few of them, but Alpha House.
Well, the last season, but have you seen Transparent?
No, I haven't seen that.
Bill Soloway one?
No.
That looks good.
Yeah, good.
That's the only one that looks worth following.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's so much. My job is just,
I know, exactly.
It's crazy. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I wish that none of them existed because it's way too, you know, it's too demanding. But I'm also quite happy about it because it just makes it more fun.
I just have one. What new shows? I know, but what new shows are you like? Do you feel like there's like don't miss it that are coming out? That you've seen it, so you can't say.
Well, I haven't seen any of the summer shows, like The Leftovers.
Yes,
Sounds really interesting. It's called The Leftovers. It's going to be on HBO. It's based on a Tom Perrotta novel. And Tom Perrotta is the guy who wrote Election, and he wrote Little Children, and The Abstinence Teacher, and he's local. And Tom Perrotta.
What was the mystery novel?
Oh, Pelican.
Oh, no.
Oh, George Pelicanos.
No.
Oh, George Pelicanos, yeah. Yeah, no, Dennis Lehane wrote for something else.
Boardwalk
Empire. So, and he is executive producing it with Damon Lindelof, who was the producer of Lost. And it's about sort of how just one day, 2% of the population just disappears mysteriously. There's no reason. Just gone. I mean, the ad is so provocative because it's got a mother who puts her kid in the back seat with the baby in the baby's seat, gets in the front seat, turns on the car, turns around, and the baby's gone. You know, and that's what happens. 2% of the population disappears. So the show is really about how people deal with randomness and loss. You know, was there a reason behind this or not? Some people form religious cults around it. It becomes a whole thing in the book. I haven't seen the show. So I'm looking forward to that. I think Orange is the New Black is a great show. but he's trying, isn't
Yes.
he? He's a good actor. So yeah, I wish they'd sent me more than one episode. This is a new AMC show that just premiered about the 1980s and the PC revolution, trying to clone IBM computers.
Okay.
All right.
All right, I have two advertisements. One is that all of these shows that Matt has talked about are available in your local public library. I can give you an example. In The Good Wife, a friend of mine in my book group said to me, "Do you watch The Good Wife?" I said, "I've never heard of it." And she was into season 3. And so I beat it off to Coolidge Corner Library, took out the first 2 seasons, and now I'm a Good Wife junkie.
Right.
And you too can become a junkie of any of his favorite shows. And one show, I think he mentions in his bio that we didn't talk about tonight, which is also in the public library, is 6 Feet Under, which is an unbelievable show. Okay, and then my other ad is, on your chair are envelopes for joining the Friends of the Brookline Public Library. It is a very expensive membership. It's $10 a year. And this is what we do, because we welcome people like Matt to come and talk. So we hope you'll all join. And thanks for coming.